The Colts got a massive boost this past weekend from a player returning from injury. What can we expect from him going forward, and how does this affect one of the units that the Colts need the most help on? We're going to cover all that and more on this video. What's going on? It's Elijah from Sports Talk Indy, where we cover all things Colts every single day. And this past weekend, the Colts had one of the most hard-fought battles they have had all season, and they ended up coming away with the win. Anthony Richardson put the offense on his back. There were some key drops. There were some misplays. There was a lot going on. And defensively, it was one of the worst games I've seen the Colts play against one of the worst offenses they've played. This linebacker room continues to struggle, and there's no disguising that. Zaire Franklin got paid this offseason and has looked like a shell of himself. EJ Speed, while both of them have an incredible amount of tackles, neither of them are getting stops immediately. And it's really not looking that great in all things considered. But one player who came back from injury this past weekend really showed out, and had what is his career best day as far as PFF rankings now go. So we're talking about the past weekend against the New England Patriots, and we're talking about edge rusher Taquon Lewis. Now, Taquon Lewis was activated this past weekend and was able to return after missing some time with injury. And Taquon Lewis this is the highest grade, the three highest graded players from the game, from the Patriots and the Colts. Christian Gonzalez, New England Patriots, no surprise there. He had a great pick against Anthony Richardson and a couple of really good tackles. Good coverage all the way around. Another one was cornerback Marcus Jones of the New England Patriots. Again, just had a good day all the way around. But the number one at 92.6, which is an incredible, mind you, that is an incredible PFF ranking, is Taquon Lewis at 92.6. And this is what they have to say. Taquon Lewis fueled a solid day for the Colts defense. He excelled in run defense, making 2 stops and adding a forced fumble. Lewis's 92.6 overall grade is the highest in his career, pending final review. Now, I think this is interesting to note because this Colts defensive line was one of the most talked about in football, because this is where the Colts decided to spend a majority of their efforts. And it looks up to this point like it was all for naught, right? Because up to this point, the Colts have struggled against passing. They've struggled against rushing. And they've really just struggled on pressure. They've struggled on specifically run defense. Guys like Joe Mixon are absolutely destroying the Indianapolis Colts run defense. And it looks like though all this money spent on keeping Kwity Paye, sending him to the 5th-year extension, or the 5th-year option, drafting Leatu Latu, bringing back Taquon Lewis, signing Roquan Davis, signing Grover Stewart, extending DeForest Buckner. The list goes on and on and on of what the Indianapolis Colts did for this defensive line. It looked as though it was all for naught, but there have been glimpses. In fact, among defensive rookies, Leatu Latu leads the league in PFF rankings as far as he could potentially be the defensive rookie of the year. And I know that's crazy to think, but Leatu Latu has 4 sacks. He has 2 forced fumbles. He has looked incredible in the glimpses that we've seen of what he's able to do. Now, he's not played 100% of the snaps, and obviously he's missing what was supposed to be his counterpart, which was Samson Ebukam. But we're seeing this Taquon Lewis, and we're seeing guys like Kwity Paye, Taquon Lewis really start to come in and be incredible. Kwity Paye has had what I assume to be a career year if he continues on the trajectory that he's currently at. And this defensive line, though they're not getting exactly what we hoped they would get, I think that's more on the linebackers, honestly, if we're being real. Because honestly, I think your defensive line, yes, they're supposed to be effective in run defense, but I think that a lot of that comes on your linebackers, and that really past the front 4 or front 5. But going on Taquon Lewis, I do believe this guy has continued to just be consistent for the Indianapolis Colts. They drafted him in the 2nd round, pick 64 of the 2018 draft, which was a good draft for the Colts. All the way around, just had a good defensive draft. But his regular season stats, he has 12 solo tackles, 1.5 sacks this year, 1 forced fumble, no interceptions, obviously being an edge rusher, just reading his stat lines. But this past weekend, he had 3 tackles, 2 for massive stops in the run, and then 1 forced fumble. And again, this is a guy who doesn't play every snap. He's not an every snap guy. Kwity Paye is out there. I think he's up to 90-something%. Leatu Latu obviously takes some off the edge as well. Then you got Grover Stewart, Roquan Davis, DeForest Buckner. Those guys all get a majority of the snaps. But Taquon Lewis, along with Deo Odeyingbo, are guys that kind of shuffle in. They rotate in based on the looks that the offense is giving, based on the play call, based on the defensive formation, so on and so forth. But they're not guys that play 50, 60, 70% of snaps. They're guys that play when needed. So to have a stat line like 1 forced fumble, 2 incredible stops, when you're not even the top edge rusher. I mean, this is a guy who's not even listed as like the top 3 edge rushers on the Colts depth chart. And so I think a guy like Taquon Lewis to have a day like this is just glimpses of what this Colts defense could be. Now, don't get me wrong. You will never find a harder critic of Gus Bradley than me. I think that the Colts showed up to this game unprepared. They seemingly had no idea what the Patriots are going to do. They had no idea what defense or what offense the Patriots are going to go out. They seemed like they had never seen Drake May play before, and the players just looked confused. They had no idea what was going on. Drake May ran for a 41-yard run. So this defense has, I think, the workings of all of the right pieces. Taquon Lewis being one of these guys who has just been a staple of consistency for this Colts team. But also you just look at the guys that they have. You've got another year with Kwity Paye. You've got another 3 years or 4 years with Leatu Latu, depending on how it goes. You've got 4 years left with Zaire Franklin. You've got potentially another few years with Nick Cross. And if you re-sign Julian Blackmon, you've got all these guys that are the workings. You've got Jalen Jones still. You've got Juju Brents coming back from injury potentially very, very soon. And then you've got all these guys working. And if you just get the defensive coordinator right, I do believe, and honestly, Gus Bradley has had some games where he's actually looked good, which has been so surprising. But he's actually looked good in some of these games. And I do believe that with the right coaching, this Colts defense could be really, really good. But I do believe it's going to take someone not Gus Bradley. But Taquon Lewis having a career day should just show that the glimpses of what this Colts team can become with the right coaching, with the right development, with the right GM in place. I do believe that this Colts team can very easily take that next step from a 9-8 team to a team that is going to be able to go really, really deep into the playoffs and hopefully bring a Super Bowl to the city of Indianapolis for the first time in almost 20 years. But it all relies on guys like this, the guys who are not your number one guys on the depth chart, number one guys in the position. It's going to rely on guys who are number 2 and 3 to continue to have days like this where we're seeing a 92 on the PFF power rankings, which is incredible. Again, that's just something you don't see a lot of. But you even look at what they're ranking Leatu Latu at. They're ranking him this season already at a 76, which is an above average grade for a defensive player. And then we look at the NFL Power Rankings Week 14. The Colts move up several spots. The Colts have gotten that needed spark from Anthony Richardson as a runner and a passer to get back into playoff contention. The mid-season benching has proven to be fortuitous for Shane Steichen. The Colts will go into bye week, obviously this week, as the number 8 seed, which means they're just on the outside looking in if the season ended today. And then this, obviously, everything relies on the game going on right now, again, with the Browns and the Denver Broncos. So we're actively rooting for the Browns, which is a weird thing to say, not a team we normally root for, but everything that we need relies on the Broncos losing. But it all relies on guys further down in the depth chart than just your position ones. It relies on guys like Taquon Lewis to continue to be that staple of consistency.